So this should be a review lesson about graphing inequalities. So you got to remember, once you solve for y in an inequality with, or any equation with two variables, you have put the equation into slope-intercept form. And that means that the information here next to the x is your slope, and the information that is not by the x is your y-intercept. And then hopefully you remember how to graph that. You would plot the y-intercept on the y-axis and then count up and over for your next coordinate. And you could keep going in that pattern until you have enough to draw a line. So basically everything's going to be the same on this. And to solve a inequality, you are going to need to graph them. Some things to remember is that just a simple greater than and a simple less than means that your line is going to be dotted. A greater than or equal to and a less than or equal to will give you a solid line. Now there's different ways to determine where you should shade. You could pick a point and then plug it in, but I think the easiest thing to do is to just read it off and say when y is greater than or greater than and equal to, you're going to shade everything above that line, either if it's dotted or solid. And if it's going to be y is less than or y is less than or equal to, you're going to shade below the line. Things to remember, because the first step is going to be solving for y. If you are working in an inequality and you want to divide or need to divide by a negative or multiply by a negative, you must flip the inequality sign to the other direction. Also, keep in mind that flipping the inequality around is dangerous because often people forget to flip the inequality at the same time. The inequality sign at the same time. So here's the steps that you want to go through. Okay, the very first thing is to solve your inequality for y, which means just get y by itself. You're going to use inverse operations or opposite operations to get there. Remember, if you multiply by a negative or divide by a negative, you need to flip the inequality sign as you go. The second step is going to be graph the line. And you're just going to use the slope-intercept information that you get from solving for y. I would suggest that you pay attention while you draw your line whether or not it should be solid or dotted. Okay? And then you're going to shade either above or below the line depending on if it's y is greater than or if it's y is less than. You should always check your solution. This is a very easy one to find out if you've done correctly or not. All you're going to do is pick any coordinate that lies in the shaded area, and you can plug it into the appropriate spots in your original inequality. If you get a true statement when you're done, for instance, 2 is greater than 0, then you know that you have a solution. If you have a false statement, -3 is greater than 10, then you know that something went wrong and that is not a solution. Things to remember: if your inequality produces a solid line, any coordinate on that line is a solution. But if it's a dotted line, any coordinate on that dotted line is not a solution.